Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Idahoan Show. About a year ago, I upgraded from an 89 gas F250 to a 94 diesel F250 with dual wheels in the back. It was kind of a forced upgrade under the circumstances, but I won't bore you with the backstory. Anyway, so the other day I'm driving home with a load of building materials in this truck that I haven't really had all that long, and I noticed something kind of fly off on the front passenger side. I'm like, that doesn't look good. So I pull over and I've only got 3 lug nuts left on that wheel, and the others, the studs, are broken. Not sure exactly what happened there. It could be that the lug nuts were too tight and the studs were under excessive tension. It could be that they were loose and so the wheel was able to wobble a little bit and that was fatiguing the studs. It could be that the studs were not heat treated correctly and so that led to premature fractures. I don't really know what the cause of failure is, but the bottom line is I need new wheel studs on that side. Now, thankfully, once I was able to get the truck home to my shop and up on a jack stand and pull the wheel off, it was really easy to get at the broken studs. That hub assembly is designed such that you can replace the studs without pulling the hub off or anything. So I was looking forward to this being a pretty quick and easy fix. Unfortunately, nobody is currently manufacturing a stud that is the right size. This stud has a 5/8 thread with a .875 diameter knurl. Now, I can get studs that have the right knurl diameter with a 3/4 inch thread, and I can get studs that have the right thread style with a smaller knurl, but I have looked all over the internet and all over the local auto parts stores and can't find anything that matches both the thread size and the knurl size. And at this point I'm convinced that the only way I'm going to get new studs that fit is to make them myself. So, I picked up these socket head cap screws, if I can get the camera to focus on them. These are the right length for the studs before they got broken off. They're the right thread size, obviously. And the head is just slightly smaller than the original head of the stud, but it's larger than the knurl diameter. So what I can do is I can turn the head of the stud, or most of that head, down to the necessary knurl diameter. Then I've got some washers that are just slightly larger than that. In fact, they're basically the same size or just very slightly larger than the original stud head size. And so I can turn the head of the bolt down to the knurl diameter, leaving a little bit on the end that washer can butt up against after I turn the inside to fit the knurl diameter. And we should be able to get a fair approximation of the geometry of this stud in a grade 8 bolt. Now, of course, the other catch here is that I don't really have equipment to make this spline knurl, which is kind of an important feature of the stud because it helps to keep it from rotating in the hub when you're trying to torque down the lug nuts. So what I'm gonna try to do is take a 60-degree point cutting tool, like I would normally use for cutting a thread on the lathe, and just turn it sideways in the tool holder. And then I'll stop the lathe, I'll run the tool in and just use it as a single point cutting tool, manually run it back and forth to cut each of these little slots individually and just kind of eyeball the spacing, you know, turning the lathe chuck a little bit by hand in between cuts. And it's gonna be kind of a tedious process, but I think we can come up with something that should work. Well, there's our improvised wheel stud. Now, to install this in the hub, what I'm going to do is, of course, insert it in the hole and then tap it with a hammer to just barely get it started. And then I can put a spacer on the outside and use a nut to just draw the stud into the hub. The first few of these I used just a scrap of tubing for the spacer, and that actually didn't work well. It just kind of squished. I kind of got one done and then it got mangled enough to where it wasn't working. So I made this custom spacer and that seems to be working really well. Well, it seems like that worked pretty well. I was able to get the lug nuts torqued to spec without any trouble. The studs seem perfectly secure in the wheel hub, and actually the studs were not nearly as tedious to machine as I feared they might be. So at this point I do still need to get some proper lug nuts to replace the ones that I lost when the studs broke off in the first place. But at that point, the truck should be fully operational again. Now, the way I make videos, I tend to film them somewhat opportunistically and let the footage pile up until I've got enough for 6 or 8 videos, and then I edit them all at once and schedule them to upload at 2-week intervals. So there's typically at least a couple months delay between when I initially film something like this and when it finally gets published on YouTube. So that'll give me some time to drive the truck and make sure the wheel doesn't fall off, make sure that the studs are still holding, and obviously if anything goes wrong, I'll either add an addendum to this video or just not post it. So if you're watching this, you can be reasonably confident that this did in fact work for at least a couple of months in my case. And in any case, thank you for watching the Idahoan Show.